6 a.m., my 28th birthday. I wake up alone, for the first time in our 3-year relationship. She had already left. But where to? What I discovered next made me disappear completely. The morning of October 15th arrived with the subtle chill of autumn in New York City. Ethan Chen woke at 6 a.m., as he always did. But this morning was different. It was his 28th birthday, and for the first time in their 3 years together, Sarah's side of the bed was already empty. He found her in their Chelsea apartment's kitchen, fully dressed in her power suit, scrolling through emails while her coffee grew cold. She glanced up briefly when he entered, offering a distracted smile before returning to her phone. "Big presentation today?" Ethan asked, pouring himself coffee from the pot she'd made. Oh no. It's Marcus's birthday party at the office. The whole team's been planning it for weeks. We've got clients coming, the CEO will be there. She finally looked up properly, and something in Ethan's expression made her pause. "What?" "Nothing," he said quietly. "Have a good day." She kissed him quickly, tasting of lipstick and ambition, and was gone before he could say anything else. The apartment fell silent except for the hum of traffic 20 floors below. On the kitchen counter sat a single cupcake in a plastic container. Red velvet. His favorite. The note attached read, "Happy birthday, little brother. See you for dinner? Lily." His sister hadn't forgotten. She never did. Throughout the day, Ethan's phone remained largely silent. A text from Jake, his roommate and best friend, a call from his mother in Queens, but from Sarah, nothing. At noon, he opened Instagram and immediately wished he hadn't. Sarah's stories showed an elaborate party setup at her Midtown office. Gold balloons, a 3-tier cake, champagne flowing freely. "Celebrating our amazing Marcus," the caption read, with multiple heart emojis. In one video, he could hear her laugh, the bright, performative one she used at networking events, not the snorting giggle he fell in love with. By 3 p.m., she'd texted, "Marcus's party is running long. Important clients here. Don't wait up. X." The X felt like an afterthought. Pixels trying to substitute for presence. That evening, Lily arrived at his apartment with Chinese takeout and poorly concealed pity. "She forgot, didn't she?" his sister asked, not really asking. "She's busy," Ethan replied automatically, the excuse worn smooth from overuse. Lily's expression hardened. "Ethan, when are you going to stop being everyone's second choice?" The words hung in the air long after she left. Sarah came home at 2:17 a.m. Ethan knew because he was awake, laptop open, staring at code that had stopped making sense hours ago. She slipped in quietly, heels in hand, but froze when she saw him on the couch. "You're up," she said unnecessarily. "Couldn't sleep." She moved closer, and he could smell champagne and someone else's cologne. Probably from greeting clients, he told himself. The party was insane. Marcus's girlfriend flew in from Miami to surprise him. The CEO gave this speech about how valuable he is to the company. I had to stay, you understand? These connections. It was my birthday, Ethan said simply. The words landed like a physical blow. Sarah's face cycled through surprise, horror, and then, worst of all, irritation. "Oh my God, Ethan, I'm so sorry. But you could have reminded me. You know how crazy work has been. I'll make it up to you this weekend. We'll do something special. Like we did last year? Oh wait, that was the weekend you had to fly to Miami for that conference. Or the year before, when you planned that client dinner on my birthday and asked me to understand. That's not fair. You know my career is important to me. And I'm not? I didn't say that. You didn't have to." Ethan closed his laptop slowly. Sarah, when was the last time you chose me? Not when it was convenient, not when it fit your schedule, but actually chose me over something else. So I'm supposed to sabotage my career for your ego? You're supposed to remember that I exist. The argument that followed was quiet, devastating in its precision. No raised voices, no thrown objects, just two people realizing they'd been living in different relationships all along. I need some space, Ethan said finally. Fine, take your space. I'll sleep at Becca's tonight. Sarah grabbed her overnight bag, always packed and ready. No, Ethan said. I mean real space. To think. Sarah paused at the door. Don't be dramatic, Ethan. We'll talk tomorrow when you've calmed down. But tomorrow came. And Ethan was gone. He'd left his keys on the counter, his phone powered off in the drawer, and a note that Sarah would read 17 times. I need to figure out if I exist in your world or just orbit around it. The first day, Sarah was annoyed. She went to work, complained to Becca about Ethan's tantrum, and threw herself into meetings. But when she came home to the empty apartment that night, the silence felt different, heavier. By day 3, annoyance had transformed into worry. His phone went straight to voicemail. Jake claimed ignorance about his whereabouts, though something in his voice suggested otherwise. Lily was even less helpful. You lost him, Lily said bluntly when Sarah showed up at her Brooklyn bakery. Not just now. You've been losing him for years. He just finally noticed. I love him, Sarah protested. Then why don't you know that he's been working on a startup idea for 6 months? Why don't you know that he turns down promotions that would require travel because he prioritizes your relationship? When's the last time you asked him about his dreams instead of assuming they revolve around yours? Sarah couldn't answer. The unraveling was swift and merciless. Without Ethan's quiet competence smoothing the edges of her life, things fell apart. She missed meetings because he wasn't there to remind her. She showed up to client dinners at the wrong restaurants because he'd always handled reservations. Her apartment, which had felt like a symbol of her success, now felt like an expensive box filled with his absence. At work, Marcus noticed her distraction. You okay, Mitchell? You've been off your game. Personal stuff, she said curtly. He studied her with unexpected insight. Let me guess. You finally pushed too hard and he pushed back by leaving? Sarah's shock must have shown. My fiancé left me 2 years ago, Marcus continued. Said she was tired of competing with my career for my attention. Said she felt like a supporting character in my success story. He smiled sadly. The thing is, she was right. And by the time I figured that out, she'd already rewritten her story without me. That night, Sarah found Ethan's journal. He'd left it in plain sight. Another thing she'd never noticed. The entries spanned years, documenting not complaints, but observations. Sarah had a big win at work today. She told me about it for 45 minutes. When I mentioned my promotion, she said, "That's nice, babe," and went back to her phone. Canceled dinner with my family again. Sarah had a networking event. Mom asked if I'm happy. I said yes. I'm getting better at lying. I used to love her ambition. Now I wonder if there's room for 2 dreams in this relationship, or if I'm just here to applaud hers. The latest entry was dated on his birthday. I feel like a ghost in my own life, visible only when convenient, substantial only when needed. Is this what love becomes? A series of compromises until you can't recognize yourself? Sarah cried until she couldn't breathe. The search began in earnest. She retraced their history through New York City like an archaeologist excavating their love. The night market in Queens where they'd had their first date. He'd been nervous, spilling sauce on his shirt, and she'd found it endearing. When had she stopped finding his vulnerability endearing and started seeing it as weakness? The bookstore in Brooklyn where he'd proposed, hidden among the stacks of poetry, neither of them really understood, but pretended to. She'd said yes immediately, dazzled by the romance. But romance, she was learning, required presence, the high line, where they'd had their worst fight, until now. She'd accused him of not supporting her dreams. He'd asked, quietly, when she'd last supported his. They'd made up against the railing as tourists streamed past, but now she wondered if they'd just postponed the inevitable. Security footage from Grand Central showed him buying a ticket, but the destination remained a mystery. Jake finally cracked after 2 weeks. "He's safe," he said. "That's all I can tell you. I need to see him." "No, you need to see yourself first. That's what he's doing." The transformation wasn't cinematic. It was painful, incremental, and often humiliating. Sarah started therapy. She set boundaries at work for the first time, turning down networking events, leaving the office at reasonable hours. Her boss noticed. "You're not as hungry anymore, Mitchell." "I'm hungry for different things," she replied. She involved herself in Ethan's world. Really involved herself. Had dinner with his parents, who were politely confused by her sudden interest. Helped Lily at the bakery on weekends, burning multiple batches of cookies before producing anything edible. Reached out to his friends, learning about the man she'd claimed to love but had never truly known. "He built an app to help my kid with dyslexia," one friend told her. "Spent months on it, never mentioned it to anyone. That's Ethan. He just quietly makes things better." 3 weeks into his absence, Sarah discovered she was pregnant. The irony wasn't lost on her. Finally, undeniable proof of their connection, and no way to share it. She left voicemails daily, not knowing if he listened. "I went to that dim sum place you love. Ordered the shrimp dumplings even though I hate them. The waiter asked where you were. I didn't know what to say. Your mom taught me to make your favorite soup. I burned the bottom of the pot. She was very patient. I quit the Hamilton account. They wanted meetings every weekend. The old me would have said yes. The me who loses you says no. I dream about you, not the romantic dreams, the mundane ones. You making coffee, you fixing my laptop, you existing in spaces you should be. I wake up and practice being someone worth coming back to." On day 31, Ethan stood on the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset. He looked different, not dramatically, but in the way people look when they've stopped trying to be smaller. He'd spent the month in Jake's family cabin upstate, writing code, taking walks, remembering who he was before he'd started disappearing into someone else's shadow. He'd decided to pursue his startup, the one Sarah never knew about. He'd decided his worth wasn't negotiable. He'd decided that love shouldn't feel like erasure. "You came back," Sarah said. He turned, unsurprised. Somehow, they'd both known to come here. "I didn't leave to hurt you," he said. "I know. You left to save yourself." They stood apart, two people who'd shared a bed for 3 years, suddenly unsure how to share space. "I've been coming here every day," Sarah admitted, "hoping. I've become someone who hopes instead of plans. It's terrifying. I listened to your voicemails. All of them? Every single one." The silence stretched, comfortable in its discomfort. "I'm different now," Sarah said, "but I can't promise I'm fixed. I can promise I'm trying. I'm different too. I won't disappear again, not into your life, not from my own. So, what do? We start over, or we end clean, but we don't go back to what was." Sarah nodded, then took a breath. "There's something else. I'm pregnant." Ethan's face went through a journey of emotions. Shock, joy, fear, and finally, a complicated hope. "How long have you known?" 2 weeks. You didn't tell me in the voicemails. It felt like a trap, like using it to bring you back. I needed you to come back for us, not for an obligation. They moved closer, not touching but reducing the distance. I'm scared, Ethan admitted, of repeating patterns, of teaching a child that love means accepting less than you deserve. Then we teach them something else. We teach them that love means showing up, being seen, and choosing each other. Every day. Can we do that? I don't know, but I want to try. They started therapy, individually and together. It wasn't easy. There were sessions where old wounds bled fresh, where Sarah's instinct to prioritize work clashed with her commitment to change, where Ethan's newfound boundaries felt like walls. But slowly, they built something new, not a fairy tale, but a real relationship between two flawed people committed to seeing each other. On Ethan's 29th birthday, Sarah woke him at 6 a.m. I didn't plan anything, she said. What do you want to do today? He smiled, the first full smile she'd seen in months. Honestly, nothing special, just be here, with you. They spent the day doing nothing and everything. Breakfast at the diner he loved, a walk through Central Park, visiting his parents in Queens, ending at Lily's Bakery after closing, just family and close friends. Even Marcus came, with his new girlfriend, a teacher who called him on his bullshit and made him better. As midnight approached, Sarah handed Ethan a wrapped journal. I documented every day you were gone, she explained. Not for you, for me. To track my own journey. The last entry. May I? He nodded. She opened to the final page and read, I learned that love isn't just a feeling. It's bearing witness to someone's existence and choosing to celebrate it every single day. I see you, Ethan Chen. I see you, and I choose you, and I promise to keep seeing you even when life tries to blur the edges, especially then. They were quiet for a moment. The baby's due October 15th, Sarah said. Your birthday. Our birthday, Ethan corrected. A chance to rewrite what that date means. Are we going to make it? Sarah asked. I don't know, Ethan said honestly. But we're here. We're trying. We're choosing. That's more than we had before. And in a city of 8 million souls, two people held hands and chose to see each other. Imperfect, struggling, but undeniably present. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was better. It was real. The story of Ethan and Sarah wasn't about the leaving or the returning. It was about the space between, where two people learned that love wasn't just a feeling you fell into, but a choice you made over and over, until choice became devotion, and devotion became home. In the end, Marcus had been right. He was never the rival. The real competition had always been between the life they were living and the life they could choose. And finally, after all the leaving and seeking and finding, they chose each other. Not perfectly, not without scars, but consciously, deliberately, with eyes wide open. And in New York City, where dreams came to thrive or die, two people decided to dream together. Not in the shadow of each other's ambitions, but side by side, equally visible in the light.